Welcome back to Recruiting Blitz. My name's Tim Verghese. Today we're joined by our Mid-South expert, Sam Spiegelman. Sam, welcome back to the show. Been a while, but we're happy to have you to talk. I guess some of the biggest this is the biggest visit weekend, of course, for Nebraska this season. And some of the biggest names are from your region. Ahmad Hudson, five-star tight end, Trey Haralson, four-star receiver, a few more on that list, of course, Tate Ellis, a few more out of that region, of course, Leon Noyle and his teammate returning. So a lot to get into. We're not going to waste a whole lot of time. Be sure to check out our work over at InsideNebraska.com, Rivals.com as well for the full recruiting coverage from the weekend. But Sam, getting into it, I mean, this has been a date that's been on Ahmad Hudson's calendar for a couple of months now, and I've tried to, kind of iterate. Okay, hey, like LSU's in this for sure, A&M's in this for sure, but Nebraska's like very seriously in this recruitment as well.
Yeah, if obviously we have to take into account that LSU just fired its head coach. But leading into this visit, LSU and Nebraska have been the two teams recruiting the number one tight end, Ahmad Hudson, the hardest. He has obviously been on campus before. This is a huge game environment for him to compare and contrast. He's been at games in Tiger Stadium, he's been in games in Kyle Field, and now he'll get to see what Memorial Stadium is like this weekend for this very exciting USC game that, obviously, like you said, he's been scheduled to see for a while. Trey Taylor will be there, has been in his ear. I think Nebraska has a shot here. It's going to be a difficult task to overcome the Tigers, but he's not making a decision until his official visits. This can continue this wrestling at the top for Ahmad Hudson, whether it's LSU one day or Nebraska the next. This will give Nebraska some more footing as they get to official visit season when he's going to lock in his decision.
Right. And we talk about Hudson, just the type of talent he is compared to we've seen obviously big time tight ends from the South. Even like, Trey Green draws a lot of comps, but Hudson does so much more, at the high school level. Just he's already so much more polished as an inline blocker. Trey is a phenomenal two-sport athlete. Ahmad Hudson's like a legitimate like five-star in two sports. Like what type of caliber of athlete are we talking about with Ahmad?
Yeah, honestly, speaking to a staffer the other day at one of these contenders, he's basically like Trades when Trades was graduating from Zachary High School, playing in a state championship, and then enrolling in LSU a few weeks later. Ahmad has been at that same peak going into his junior season. From talking to some people in Baton Rouge or what he did at their Friday Night Lights camp in June, just astonished at the growth from this big framed wide receiver that you mentioned. Has also taken his game up as a blocker. He basically was a giant receiver as a freshman at Ruston High School, making astonishing plays downfield. And obviously, the basketball background shows up when he competes for balls. But you're seeing a full package of tight ends as a junior season. Ruston is going to likely play again in the Superdome in December because of the unguardable nature of Ahmad Hudson. No team has been able to solve him this season. I don't know what cornerback or safety is going to line up opposite Ahmad. And I think the rest of, he's already the industry ranking number one tight end. It'll be really exciting to see him in San Antonio in January. He's an All-American, a Navy All-American. Be interesting to see him go against some of these senior cornerbacks with some length that can move and see if they can cover one of the best pass catching tight ends I've ever seen.
Right, right. And he was at the Battle at the Boneyard in the summer, lit that up with Trey, and it was just one of those things where everyone in attendance by the end of that tournament was like, "Oh yeah, you got to know who that is." And he talked to me after that camp, and it was funny because you saw him just again, it was consistent every time they need to move the change. That's where Trey was going. Every time he needed a target in the end zone, that's where Trey was going. But later in that game, Trey, Ahmad just taking the top off defenses, and I just hadn't seen that from him yet. And he walked up to me after the game. He's like, "Yeah, just wait till I start really running. Like I haven't really started like striding out downfield yet." And that's just a terrifying thought because that guy's still growing into his frame. And you spoke about Trey Dez. Like I saw Trey Dez as a sophomore just randomly. I was at a game they were playing Manny, and I saw an old video of Trey Dez running around. He just looks like an old baby giraffe. Like he's running routes against Talon Singleton. I mean, Ahmad just looks like an college tight end at the same stage. We saw him this last summer at the same stage, at the same age, look like a completely different player. It's remarkable what he is, and again, priority number one for Nebraska, who obviously has their hands in a couple of different recruitments here in the 27 cycle at the very top. of the board. He's back in town. Cooper Terwilliger, four-star tight end, out of Pierre T.F. Riggs out in South Dakota, back in town as well. Nebraska wants to pair those two up really bad. But talking receivers, talking pass catchers. Tay Ellis, another one that again has been talking really highly about Nebraska, but he's yet to visit. This has been a date that's been circled on his calendar for some time. He's in town for the first time, excited to reconnect with the staff because they visited him last spring, but connect with Trey Taylor for the first time in person as well.
Yeah, he was supposed to be in Nebraska this summer. He was unable to make that visit. So this is a visit that he's had set since, I believe, August or September at this point. So Nebraska has been maybe not at the top, but close to the top with Tay Ellis, one of the more explosive vertical threats out of this talented Lone Star State. You listen, Texas and also Texas A&M have been at the top with Tay. He's a guy that is very coveted in the state of Louisiana, state of Texas. With Ahmad Hudson still on the brain. SMU has also been able to get Ellis on campus, but Nebraska has a shot here. He's very interested. The staff has kept him engaged. Coach Shorts has recruited the state of Texas for a long time and has made noise. The biggest issue, of course, has been getting that trip to Lincoln in the works. I'm curious to see how big of a move Nebraska can make. This is a fluid recruitment. Like I said, Texas has been leading. A&M has momentum. Nebraska could very much be the leader if they pull off a big win on Saturday night and impress someone like Tay Ellis along the way.
Right. And Trey Haralson is another one from the Lone Star State, a recruitment that's been kind of quiet relative to who he is as a player and kind of what his recruitment is about to be.
100%. This is very early on. Texas A&M was an early favorite. TCU has really grabbed hold of momentum with the East Texas four-star, top 100 prospect. Right now, I have a prediction on the Horned Frogs, but that may be a little bit more of a pulse pick. He went out to Arizona State. They've been dialing it up. Ole Miss has been talking to him, and Nebraska has really dialed it up with him amid this stellar junior season out there at Tyler High School. He is very excited about this visit. Like you said, when you're from East Texas, you don't get out to different places, outside of Texas or the region too often. So much like Tay Ellis, this is a chance to make a sizable impression. He really liked his visit to Tempe. That was a different experience for Trey Haralson. I think Nebraska has equal potential given how hard they've recruited him and the magnitude of this game and environment for what it could mean for his recruitment.
Right. We're talking about those two. I think maybe the most talented pass catchers from Texas expected on campus is in the 28 cycle out of Crowley. What do you think of Demarion Mays, the player, what you've seen from him this season?
Yeah, he's sensational. He's one of those extremely high basement players. No matter if he keeps developing, he keeps getting better and better. The limit for this kid, he can do it all. And at 2028, class of 2028, he's dominating juniors and seniors out there on given Friday nights, and he's going to make that visit with several of his North Crowley teammates, which is very big for Nebraska, getting a couple of those blue chippers from the Fort Worth area on campus. But this will be Demarion Mays' first visit to Nebraska. It'll be a return visit for the number one offensive tackle in the country. They're going to have some top Texas talent from the 2027 and 2028s on campus.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to ask you about Edwards next. That's a second visit, and one quietly. Jamar Mosey, Nebraska's senior offensive assistant, has done some good work in Nebraska's entrenched in a few recruitments in Cy Ranch quietly. Have continued to just keep tabs on Calvin Thomas in the 26 cycle and 27 cycle. They're after Amari Vickerson, 28 Armani Edwards, number one tackle in the country, and at least so far this season in the spotlight, he's played like it.
Oh, he's absolutely awesome. He's someone I'm extremely excited about. And if I'm a Nebraska fan, this is a recruitment I'm paying attention to. Like you said, Nebraska has been in this since the beginning. It's been A&M, which is obviously the closer proximity team that's having also a great season at 8-0. But Nebraska has been the other team. Now Texas Tech has gotten involved, but like you said, that he's going back to Lincoln. This is another visit. This staff has been on him from the beginning. They have a reputation in the trenches. There's a lot of excitement about Nebraska inside the Lone Star State, especially in that Houston area at Cy Ranch. This is another big visit for Armoni as he continues to explore these top options.
Right. And right before we hopped on, or shortly before we hopped on, Matt Rule agreed to an extension in Nebraska, which comes with an expectation that there's going to be more resources for him at his disposal in recruitments to utilize, both in the portal, in high school recruiting, and obviously, but kind of speak to just how important that added investment and Nebraska ponying up the way they have, I guess, or expected to with the recruiting weekend ahead.
Well, listen, if you're going to recruit, especially in the state of Texas, and you want to go against heavyweights like the University of Texas and Texas Tech and Texas A&M, and let's not sleep on SMU and TCU and Houston, who are all equipped with big pockets. You're going to have to make a splash. Obviously, Matt Rule has a fantastic personality. He's a fantastic coach, and he's an excellent recruiter with fantastic background in this state from his time at Baylor. He's come close a lot of times with a lot of really good players from this state. And when you factor in more resources from an NIL perspective, it gets someone who's on the fence between leaving the state or staying in state to potentially cross that border. Nebraska is fantastic when it comes to relationships. They've done a really great job of getting these kids to leave their home state to go visit Lincoln. Having those resources in his back pocket it's basically having an extra person in the bullpen to help close out these recruitments. I think that we're going to start to see it in this 2027 class and potentially beyond. Nebraska closing on a lot of these Texas-based recruits and others from across the Mid-South region.
Right. And Nebraska currently ranked in the top five in the 27 class with the number four class. Of course, ranked pretty low in 26, but the reasons for that, they've got a very young roster, had very limited roster spots available, and but are pushing for some late flips. I would imagine whatever additions you see here in this 26 class are high value additions, kind of instant impact type additions to the cycle. Not expecting a whole lot of 26s on campus this weekend. I do think you're primarily looking at the 27 class, but if you're looking at 26 this weekend, one name to look at, the Saab brothers are in town. Amari and Xavier. Amari, three-star receiver out of Glassboro. Xavier, the 2027 five-star, number one athlete in the country for the industry. Both of those guys in town for the very first time. Nebraska battling Alabama, Oregon in that recruitment. That's a big one on campus just because those two are kind of handling the recruitment the same way. Xavier has a little more time, but feels like this recruitment, wherever one goes, the other one's going. And, obviously with Amari having essentially 5 weeks to make a decision, Nebraska getting him on campus when they are is a big deal, big opportunity. So that's one I've got my eye on. Few others I would say on commit watch this weekend. Cooper Terwilliger, like I mentioned, back in town for the second time, down to a top four, but has family ties to the program. His mom's from Lincoln, grew up a Nebraska fan. He's big. He's watched Nebraska his whole life. So he's back in town. I think that's one to keep an eye on. Iowa State, Michigan looming, but I really like where Nebraska is in that one. And then in 28, Asher Ghioto, I believe I'm saying that right, but number two edge in the country out of Jacksonville, the Bowl School. Don't think he's on commit watch, but it's a big deal that he's on campus. Bryce Smalls, number three offensive tackle in the country in the 28 cycle, also on campus. And that's just like kind of the start of it. You go over to InsideNebraska.com, check out Sam's work with our rivals as well for what's ahead for Nebraska. Still could see some late additions. We're tracking a few. Amir Brown visited Nebraska last weekend. Is trending to get back on campus, and as we reported this week, I really like where Nebraska stands there. Think they have an opportunity to potentially get over the top. So a couple recruitments I've got an eye on this weekend. Big opportunity for Nebraska. Sam, if you're watching a recruitment or two for Nebraska this weekend, what do you have your eyes on?
Yeah, I probably would have started this one with Samaj Stanford. We thought was going to be in line for his sixth visit to campus overall. He's not going to make it to campus. We just learned on Thursday morning before we hopped on. But I still like where Nebraska stands here. It seems to be a two-team race between Oklahoma and Nebraska. A lot to still be determined in this coaching carousel to see who's where. Matt Rule being in Nebraska long term, I think only bolsters Nebraska's chances with Samaj. Is obviously a team we're watching moving forward, but I'm keeping an eye on Trey Haralson. Like I said, this is a recruitment that's just starting to take off. I think it's just starting to match the ranking for lack of better terms. Like we talked about TCU making a big splash early on, but Arizona State's been getting involved. Ole Miss has been getting involved in Nebraska. There's a lot of intrigue heading into this visit. This is a fluid recruitment. You talked about having more resources with a big win against a team like USC, a great environment, and then sitting down with Coach Rule at the end. It's just a recruitment. I'm going to see if Nebraska can make a significant move to be a contender and stick around moving forward.
Right. Would help to have some success through the pass game, get that thing going. But Yeah, big opportunity for Nebraska, like I said. Sam, before we get you out of here, any others? I guess we've got a couple weeks here before signing day. Anyone in your region you're watching for Nebraska in particular, or at this point, or because it really is just kind of down to a handful of guys for them.
Yeah, 2026 class, there's some moving pieces, of course. I haven't heard too much, but listen, if they're going to keep exploring the Mid South, this is where a lot of the coaching carousel is taking shape. There's change coming in Baton Rouge, there's change coming in Stillwater, there's change coming in Fayetteville. And we'll see what happens if more openings and more assistant coaches and coordinators continue to shift gears. But for now, my focus for Nebraska has been more on these 2027, seeing if they can continue to hang tight. We know that they're heavily involved with Ahmad Hudson. We know they're right in the thick of it with Albert Simeon, the number one interior offensive lineman. To me, at least, none of these guys are close to making a decision. It's about Nebraska solidifying their chances to get these kids back on campus for whether it's a spring practice or an official visit to see if they can be bona fide contenders, not just in that top 3 or 4 anymore.
Right, no doubt. That'll about do it for us. Sam, appreciate you joining. Always a pleasure. We'll get you back on very soon. That'll about do it. Like we said, stay tuned to InsideNebraska.com and Rivals.com for our coverage through the weekend. We'll be back with another episode coming out of the weekend with some recruit reactions, probably a few, at least one special guest, but potentially a few just coming out of the weekend. Sam, maybe we'll get you back on and talk some Ahmad and Trey coming out of the weekend. But like I said, man, appreciate you hopping on.